and you are live tonight with myself, Anne, from Ozparatech, and the lovely Renata from Newcastle Ghost Tours, who's sitting very high tonight. No, I'm sitting very low. What is going on? Let me play with something down here and see if I can make myself go, oh, no, I think I'll go down lower. I look like I belong to the headstone now. Hang on, I've got to get up. There we go. Whew. So, tonight we are doing the ABC of Paranormal Strangeness, and we have come up with the letter P, because last week was O. LMNO. P is next, I think. And we thought, well, we could do poltergeist and we could do psychic and we could do this and that and something else. And we thought, no, let's just do a whole night on poltergeist. Because let's face it, there's enough material out there about it. Now, I'm hoping you can all hear us because we had a little bit of trouble with sound on Friday night, live from the chapel. So, for those who aren't familiar with Frightfully Good programming, Monday nights is the ABC of Paranormal Strangeness, where we actually educate people.
No readings tonight, guys.
Now, Thursday night is our free tarot night, where you get to ask a question and you might get the chance of having a reading done. So we're actually trying to teach people about ghosts and the paranormal and all that sort of stuff. So poltergeist is a fairly well-known term, and tell me, who down there can tell me out there in Facebook world, in the comments, whether you're on Facebook or on YouTube, what does the word poltergeist mean? And the first one that comes up correct, I'm going to send a sticker to. Doesn't matter where you come from in the world. I've got a frightfully good, it's on the back here actually, frightfully good paranormal parastalker. So, well, good. I'm glad you can hear me, Danielle. Oh, P for Potter. Yes, we could have done Potter is paranormally strange. We could have done Harry. Bit of Harry Potter. So we're waiting to see who can come up tonight with the name. With the definition of what poltergeist means.
Someone just said can't hear you.
Oh, not again. Can hear you fine.
Can everyone hear us, please?
No, everyone's saying can hear fine. Can hear fine.
Someone did say can't hear you.
Well, so sorry, can't hear you, Anne. Maybe I need to lean over here, but then we get in trouble for the too close. I will project my voice because I'm normally quite loud. Sorry, I can't hear very faint. It's doing it again. All right. I don't know why this is happening. So we might, you know what we might do?
Hold on. What about now?
Is that any better? Yes, who said that? Very faint. Hang on. Here fine. Very faint. Noisy spirit. Joanne Masters, you are the first one to say what it is. I'm just double checking that nobody else, a supernatural gremlin.
I did see somebody else put something up. Can you hear us?
Oh no, Christopher Edge.
Yes, Christopher Edge. That's
Christopher Edge was the first person. Okay, so Christopher, you need to private message me and send me your postal address, and I will send out that bumper sticker for you. And Joanne Masters, you'll get one as well. You were second. You were close enough.
We've already got a grumpy face.
What?
Already a grumpy face.
What have we done?
Who's here?
Jenny Pearson. No, she's actually sounds still to right. I don't know what's happened. I think she's hit the wrong button, Jenny. All right then, let's get moving.
I've got to start our podcast.
Oh, okay.
And can you please just make sure that your phone isn't zinging?
Oh, is that my phone singing this time?
She's always telling me.
Yeah, I'm always telling her off. Always.
So I'm just going to start our recording for our podcast. So please forgive me if we sort of do a very short intro again. So welcome everyone to the Frightfully Good podcast for those who can't see us live. And tonight's episode is all about poltergeists. And we're going to tell some stories and just run through some definitions and maybe answer some questions. So you might have some questions along the way or at the end, and you might want to come on live and ask those questions.
Oh,
Who knows?
I haven't sent Christy the link. Best I get that organised for you when you're talking.
Yes.
So, has anybody had a poltergeist experience? Now, I actually thought we could start off with a video of what some poltergeist action is all about. Would you like a video?
Hello, Jose.
Oh, hi, Jose. Oh, you've lost your fucking badge, mate. That's not good. What went wrong? You are definitely a top fan. All right, so I found a clip on YouTube and I thought it might be interesting to play it. I'm just making sure that it is there. It only goes for a minute. You probably won't hear sound because last time we tried this there was no sound, but there's nothing really to hear. But let's have a look at some poltergeist action. So I'm just going to go through...
Christopher Edge, have you lost your granddad, my darling? Is your granddad in spirit? Could you please let me know?
All right, just going to jump across to here. So hopefully you can all see that.
I don't think they can hear us when...
No, that's okay. But we do appear as a little icon on the side there. So this only goes for a minute. Personally, I would be pissed if that happened in my kitchen.
So for those on the podcast, we're just watching a small video. It's called Scary Paranormal Activity, Intense Poltergeist Activity Caught on Video.
There's plates being thrown out of cupboards, cupboard doors being flung open, placemats just slid off the table, drawers are opening. That actually looked like it got thrown in reverse.
Yeah, I think someone's sitting under the table doing that.
Now, Renata.
I'm sorry.
And then it's that last bit at the end where the chair goes up backwards, which I find quite interesting. So how do I stop this and how do I get back is the question. There we are. Stops sharing. So, what did you think of that? Anyone had that sort of activity happen? Have you ever had that sort of activity happen, Renata?
Well, this kind of goes back to the whole interpretation of what a poltergeist is. And so we sort of have to clarify that a little bit because we kind of have normalized this whole poltergeist thing as noisy ghost or a ghost that throws things. But in that lies the big question because we still call it a ghost. So if you have had a ghostly encounter where something has moved or shifted, then you could have had a poltergeist experience. Thank you, Christopher. I was very young when both of them died.
So to put this up from Christy.
What's that got to do with anything? Christopher, I've got someone here for you, my sweet, and it is definitely your granddad. I'm not sure whether it is what side of the family it is on. Check within your family at the moment whether you have... I think this is your mum. This is your mum's side of the family because that's... Sorry about this. I'm taking over the show yet again. But I think it is your mum's side of the family. So
yes,
I just want to know whether she's okay at the moment. Everything's fine with her. But there is certainly some beautiful energy from the other side coming through for you. So I just wanted to give you that message and say that your family's being looked after and so are you.
Danielle's had things thrown across the room in front of her. And yes, Shelley, I'm pretty sure that video has been debunked. So that's what I was putting it up saying that this is what a poltergeist supposedly is.
So So can I run through a few
Why
definitions
not?
of
Let's do
what
some
a poltergeist
definitions.
is? And we're going to go from the sublime to the ridiculous here, so just stay with me. So in ghost lore, a poltergeist, or which is German for noisy spirit or noisy ghost, is a type of ghost or spirit that is responsible for physical disturbances, such as loud noises, objects that move or are destroyed. They are purportedly capable of pinching, biting, and hitting and tripping people. Most accounts of poltergeists describe the movement or levitation of objects such as furniture or cutlery, or noises such as knocking on doors. Now, I remember going to a restaurant in East Maitland, about 30 minutes drive from here, and the chef there was reporting that he had a tray filled with ramekins ready for service, sitting on top of the bench, and as he turned around to look, that whole tray with the ramekins lifted up off the table and flew across and went straight onto the floor. So there you go. So they have traditionally been described as troublesome spirits who haunt a particular person instead of a specific location. Now, that's an interesting thing to think about there. Do you think that is true? We'll go back to that. They are traditionally being described as troublesome spirits who haunt a particular person instead of a specific location. But if you go back in history, when poltergeists weren't called poltergeists, this is going back deeper and deeper into history, where we still had ghostly experiences, they may well have actually been thought of more as earth spirits or elementals. So in that case, they would have most definitely been place spirits rather than attached to a particular person. So such alleged poltergeist manifestations have been reported in many cultures and countries, including the USA, India, Japan, Brazil, Australia, and most European nations. Early claims of spirits that supposedly harass or torment their victims date back to the 1st century, but references to poltergeists become more common in the early 1600s. The overwhelming consensus of science, this is where it gets all a bit funny, is that poltergeists do not exist and there is generally a rational explanation for people's experiences.
But that's what scientists need to do. Scientists need to say that there is a rational explanation for everything. They can't accept anything that might be spiritual without proof.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something, we're just going to try this to see if this improves the sound. You've actually got a microphone built into that, so you just pop those in your ears or in your rear, whatever you want to do. And I'm just going to pop this in at bum. And sorry to the people on the... There we go. Let's see if that is any better. Oh, wow, okay. Right, how's that?
Okay, can you hear us better now?
No, we won't know for a while, so keep going.
So misinterpretation is most likely to occur when people believe a place is haunted and they are looking for evidence to confirm this. In this way, a lot of poltergeist activity can actually be attributed to inaccurate perception of natural phenomena. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm trying to work the computer.
Now, I do have a few other definitions that are quite interesting to just listen to. So let me go through these. So Lloyd Auerbach, who is a parapsychologist and author and holds a degree in parapsychology, and also works with the Rhine Institute doing absolutely fantastic tutorials. So it is definitely worth sitting in on a Lloyd Auerbach
We've been
workshop.
studying with Lloyd through the Rhine Institute. I've actually signed up to quite a few of his courses, and he is amazing.
Yep, so he says the term poltergeist translates as noisy ghost.
So everyone agrees on that.
Yeah, a term coined as far back as the 16th century in Germany to cover chaotic yet purely physical, unexplained phenomena. So again, he says typically flying, crashing, breaking, all of that sort of stuff. For many decades, the phenomena covered by the term poltergeist has been related by extensive work in the field of parapsychology to a living agent. So this is where it changes, because we're looking from a viewpoint of parapsychology. So it is related to a living agent who is undergoing emotional stresses or whose unconscious mind essentially acts out with psychokinetic abilities. So in other words, they may not even know they have power to control inanimate objects and make them fly through the air, but they do.
Okay, so they're still having trouble hearing us.
So,
No idea.
So we know that. Can you hear us at all?
Very faint, they're saying. The volume is very soft.
So what changed, my dear?
It's between... it's from Maitland Jail, basically. Hang on. You keep talking.
Okay. So what Lloyd Auerbach and the other parapsychologists say is that this is a living agent that is associated with all of these things that are occurring when we talk about poltergeist activity. So by the way, ghosts and apparitions are not actually seen, experienced in poltergeist cases, which is another thing that separates them from other kinds of cases. So when you have poltergeist activity occurring, there is no ghost involved unless you have two things happening at once, where you have a ghostly apparition and poltergeist activity happening at the same time, which I think is rare, very rare, or just doesn't happen. Okay, so if you've got things flying through the air, you won't be seeing a ghost. So just to be clear, if a ghost moves something, given that ghosts have no physical bodies, it's still psychokinesis. So this is as far as the parapsychologists think.
All right.
Now,
just because you're on Lloyd or Albach there,
yep.
I fiddled with some buttons and, hang on, Danielle said, that's it, better. Okay, just got better what I did. Okay, there was a knob underneath there, so I'll fiddle with that again shortly. So this is Lloyd Auerbach's Ghost Hunting and How to Investigate the Paranormal. And he says here, when it comes to poltergeists, it's the easiest case to handle because it involves living people. And the best way to work out who is the poltergeist is by looking for the person who is stressed the most. And the people around that person who are stressed the most, because they are the ones who must have some sort of ESP ability, or it's called psychokinesis, and they are generating this energy mass. And he said it's like a valve release, so that when pressure builds up and then it's got to go somewhere, it explodes out into this chaos of energy that is going around it. Sorry, does that fit in with what you were doing? Because I was fiddling with knobs at the time.
Yep. I'm going to go in and show you or tell you what Harry Price thought poltergeists were. Now, Harry Price was around in what years?
Harry?
Yeah, Harry Price. Do we remember Harry Price?
Was it 1900s?
Yeah, early 1920s, I think, 1930s.
I'll have to look it up.
No, even a
You've
little
got
bit
Harry
later
Price
than that.
books. I don't have Harry Price books. I've got Lloyd.
He's kind of the father of modern ghost hunting. So he actually coined the phrase ghost hunter. And he wrote a stack of books and did a whole lot of different experiments, tried a whole lot of different things to debunk paranormal activity as well as try to prove paranormal activity. But I'll tell you what Harry Price thought of poltergeists.
Born 1881, died 1948.
There you go. All right, thank you. So poltergeists are domestically inclined, and their chief haunts are private houses, comfortable homes, family circles, especially if a young girl is present. Small houses in preference to large ones, and they prefer the country and quiet places to the town and noise. They are fond of farms and can hardly keep away from rectories, and they love the homes of holy men. Poltergeists infest new homes as well as old. Cottages have attractions for them, but they shun hotels and boarding houses like the plague. Poltergeists like company, young company for preference, and they like girls better than boys. And if they are infesting a place, one can be sure that the focus of the disturbances is in or near a girl's bed. For every interference with a boy's bed, there are 100 girls' beds disturbed.
I bet there is.
I think they are afraid of schools, even girls' schools. Tombs and crypts have occasional and morbid interest for poltergeists. Right.
Sorry, I'm just putting this down. Somebody asked for the title of the book. How to be.
This is an interesting bit, though, because it says a final thought. Probably the only way to really get a grip on the poltergeist phenomenon is to go back to before it was recognized as a phenomenon at all in the mid late 19th century, when poltergeists were billed as demons, brownies, ghosts, goblins, house
Hang
ghosts.
on, I was a brownie.
And this is where we go back to where I said that they were more sight ghosts rather than attached to people. So at some point in time, this whole myth about poltergeists seemed to change or sort of move into a different direction. And you'll find it with more and more reading and more people that kind of look at all of these phenomena. We have a different set of circumstances and a different set of beliefs that go back prior to science, sticking their nose in everything. And then this whole idea and need to quantify everything and put everything into little
Must go in a box with a heading, with subheadings.
Yeah.
And there must be an experiment where you can reproduce the phenomena, otherwise it doesn't exist.
That's right. But I want to go now to one of the most important reference points here when it comes to poltergeists, and that's Harry Potter. So with Harry Potter, it says a poltergeist is an indestructible spirit of chaos. They haunt one specific location at a time, generally those inhabited by a large number of adolescents, and either with the building or they choose to enter it in some other way. They occasionally haunt the homes of muggles. They are among the creatures classed as non-human spirituous apparitions, and as such, they are amortal. Poltergeists generally do not have a physical form, with one notable exception being Peeves, the poltergeist that haunts Hogwarts Castle. He is considered the most notorious and troublesome poltergeist in British history, and I dare say there are quite a few people out there who believe that to be the truth. Now, the only other kind of reference I got when I was looking was a psychological one, where there are studies of psychiatrists and psychologists dealing with people who believe that they have poltergeist activity occurring. And they say that poltergeists are a parapsychological manifestation which can be understood within the context of psychopathological and interpersonal relationships.
Now, yes, but Shane's got a good point here, which I have a theory on, but that doesn't explain how switches are switched on and off and cupboard doors opened and things flung out as if by an unseen hand. If this was just an explosion of energy, you would think it would be chaotic, but there seems to be an intelligence to how things are moved. True. But the person who is releasing that energy has an intelligence too. So is it everyday things that they would do that gets influenced by their explosion of energy? rather than just like a bomb blast going off and just a crater in the middle with chaos all around. Is it the chores that they particularly hated doing, like maybe putting dishes away, or I told you to turn that light off, go turn that light off. It's all those little things that just build up as a child, particularly, that maybe that it all just goes all at the one time.
Mm.
It's just that's a theory. That's not a reason, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So just to finish this off,
Sorry.
it actually says there is a need to explore the psychological setting of the poltergeist's manifestations. A case presented, a case is presented illustrating the poltergeist as a reflection of a family's concerns. So
Mm-hmm.
again, we go back to this: what's going on within the family, who is stressed, what has been happening there, and are they perpetuating and fueling the poltergeist activity, which kind of then lends itself to this: where did it start, who started it, was it a someone living in the house or the site, or has it come out of nowhere? These are questions that rarely they are looking at all of this, but no one has the ultimate answer.
Mm. And I agree, Shane. We are wizards. All of us, every single one of us. So, what are your thoughts on ghosts and then spirit of a past loved one? Do you think that ghosts are a fragment of energy and spirit being a soul past, where the fragment is parts of a soul left behind? That's another whole show. And hauntings being possibly other forms of energy that we are not aware, or, like you say, elementals.
Mm. So if you go back into history, elementals were those crazy buggers that did all of the haunting, or much of the haunting that looked like it was jinxter type of haunting. And you have in different types of, or in different indigenous beliefs around the world, you always have this jinx or jester type of spirit that can be quite malevolent, but they are tricksters. So that's kind of part of our archetypal psyche as well. So all of this is very interlinked, but where the living stop and the dead start, that's the big question. That's what we're sort of trying to work out, I guess. I can't answer that question simply, Margie, for you, because we can only really work off what we have experienced ourselves, which is quite limited when you think of all the other things that have been happening over the years. It's one of those things that you have to learn about your whole life to try and work out.
Mm.
So,
And Jose's got a very good point too there. The brain can be very powerful if you suffer from psychosis.
yeah.
Your brain can make you believe so many things. The talk we were doing, one of our overseas conventions that we were speaking at, was the deceiving brain was our topic. So yeah, it's fascinating.
Do you want to talk about your Black Monk of Pontefract?
Oh, yes.
We've got two stories tonight. Both of them very, very
I've got more than two.
very well-known stories. And what we're actually going to do for you is also link you to a talk that was given this weekend by a gentleman that came on, who was part of our beautiful Beth's virtual Paracon over in England. And he talks a lot about poltergeists, and he actually talks about the Black Monk and about the Enfield poltergeist, which I will be talking about shortly.
Good question here from Carol. What about things disappearing and then reappearing weeks later? Is this poltergeist related?
Yes, and where does it go?
And it's also called apports. It apports from one place to another. Sometimes it might be something that you've never seen before will apport. Okay, so I have a little a share screen to share with you, and let's see if I can get it to work. I don't know if you'll be able to see this. I don't think it's going to come up. No, it's very, very dark. You can't see it. Oh, well. Renata and I went to the Blackfriar Friar Pontefract poltergeist house. I had to remember all of it. We were there in November last year, so not that long ago. And we have talked about it on the show before. So here's a little bit of a background to what the Black Monk of Pontefract is all about. So Jean and Joe Pritchard moved into an unassuming house with their son Philip, 15, and daughter Diane, 12, in 1966. So already we've got two teenagers in the house. The same year, the family became disturbed by paranormal activity. They had water pools formed, lights turning off and on again, furniture overturned, pictures were slashed, objects levitated or disappeared, foul smells, that's probably the teenage son. Foul smells travelled through the house and heavy breathing sounds were heard by the terrified family. The spooky goings-on were coupled with a mysterious black-robed figure whose appearance became more and more frequent. Joe and Jean, mum and dad, were the first in the family to come face to face with the spirit, a terrifying cloaked shadow floating over their bed. Now that's interesting that two of them saw it at the one time. When one person sees it, you have to wonder if they were in that hypnagogic state where they weren't quite awake. They were halfway between sleep and wakefulness, but two people seeing it, that's really interesting. So the entity was soon witnessed by the entire Pritchard family as well as a handful of paranormal investigators. Police, local MP and vicar were all there to witness extraordinary happenings that plagued the household. Despite numerous exorcisms, now that's interesting to do with poltergeists, and ghost hunters attending the property, nothing could make the ghost leave. Do poltergeists have religious beliefs?
Well, you're kind of saying it's an energy form rather than
so
is it?
How can God remove that if that belief doesn't, if that energy is nothing to do with Christianity? So that's a whole nother
we won't
can of worms, that one. So there was a paranormal investigator, Tom Cuniff, who spent many years researching the strange case and discovered the town gallows had been situated directly across the street. Pinpointing it further to a black monk, a Cluniac monk who was hung for the rape and murder of a young girl. Remember, they've got a young girl in the house. The murdered girl would have been a similar age to Diane, who was the focus of the spirit's attentions. Didn't we have in notes earlier saying that normally it is a female that it seems to attach itself or is attracted to?
And Jose is just mentioning exorcism is demonic possession. Exorcism is done for a demonic possession, but they call different things exorcisms. So, I mean, that is exorcism in the terminology that the church would use. But some people actually kind of use that word if they're sort of just clearing, just to make it simple. They're trying to clear out.
It's like smudging the house, but with godly words.
Yeah.
How's that for a definition?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. We'll run with that.
Yeah, okay. So, kind of believed that the entire family was being haunted by the Black Monk. Now, that became a movie, if you want to go and watch that, When the Lights Went Out. And it was also on a Halloween special for Most Haunted live in 2015. And if I remember correctly, Paranormal Lockdown with Nick Groff and Katrina Weidman also did a lockdown at the house. So they're all very interesting things to watch if you would like to.
Is that the one that we traversed England to go to? From one end
Yes,
of England to the other?
We drove right up to the north of England to get to it. And there is a picture I had there of me.
Sitting at the top of the stairs?
Yes. So I'm going to go to share screen
Attack
again.
me now.
I was. Hang on. Entire screen. allow, I know this is such a slow process. So this is a picture that somebody else took. That's not me that took that. And this supposedly here is the arm and a hand of the black monk coming down the stairs with what they are saying is rosary beads clasped in their hands.
Wow, that's a stretch, isn't it? Mm.
Looks
Okay.
like somebody with a black hoodie arm and gloves, but I mean, I wasn't there, so
Mm.
I can't say yay or nay to that. Let me
Mm-hmm.
have a look what else we've got. There's Renata sitting at the Pontefract house.
Bored out of my brain.
So please notice the use of cat balls.
No, look, what's that above me? That black shadow
That's
that's
it.
coming across.
That's another one. That's the ghost.
Oh, what is that? It's going to attack me. I didn't even see that. No.
And there I am sitting at the bottom of the infamous stairs where only the year before or a few months before this particular pram had been hoiked from the top of the stairs down to the bottom of the stairs. And I sat there saying, please throw the pram at me, please. And nothing happened. So that's a really cool photo. But I did have an interesting photo come from that, which is in one photo, you can see the edge of the door. And then the next photo, you can see what looks like somebody's elbow. Now, we were sitting in that room. We know that nobody was up walking around at that stage. Everybody was sitting down and in place. We have no idea where this shape came from. I'll see if I can pop it up onto the page tomorrow, and you can have a look at that. So we did have a REM pod go off in the coal room, which was another notorious thing where the father got locked in there and came out never the same again.
Yeah.
But that was about it for the whole night. I mean, it was fantastic to be there at such a notorious place. But is it that whatever was haunting it has left? Is it because the family that had the teenage children that had the poltergeist energy attached to them had left? There was sort of no residual thing going. We heard one loud tap at one stage, and I still think that was the guy trying to scare his girlfriend.
Or was it the lady next door?
Yeah, then there's the story of the lady next door, where anybody can hire out, or there's a couple of tour companies that can hire out this house to run tours. So they'd pay a set fee, like hiring it for the night, like an Airbnb, and then they would run their investigation there. So this particular group, the lady next door didn't come out and tell stories because they basically didn't want to give her little bit to come out and tell her stories. But other tour groups, that lady would come out and tell stories, and she would tell them about bangs and knocks on the walls and this happening and that happening and what she'd seen. And lo and behold, there'd be bashes and bangs on the internal walls throughout the night because the houses are joined together with an internal wall. Not saying that she's faking it, but it seems to be the tour company that pays her. Oh, and she also offered clearings.
Yes.
£10 clearings before the investigation.
Because you need to be cleared before you go in.
Yes. So that was our experience at the Blackfriar Pontefract house.
Now, there's also, with regard to this Blackfriar thing, not sure about the gallows next door.
I hadn't heard that one before.
No, not sure about that because when and you'll hear this from the gentleman who speaks about these two cases. They connect this Blackfriar thing with the fact that there were three different priories or houses of God in Pontefract, but that's about as close as you get to anything religious. There was certainly nothing in that particular area where that house now stands. So why they're connecting this black cloaked figure to a monk, it's kind of, close enough is good enough. And that's what we've got to be careful of, that we sort of don't try and push things to make them fit. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that it?
That's all I've got on that
that's
one.
your story?
Yep.
Okay.
I had photos and a video. What do you want?
Oh.
Oh, but I do have another little story. Can I give
Yes.
you another little story?
Yeah, go ahead.
You know that we have some Australian poltergeists that have been in the media. And this one, the gorgeous Jason King, remember Jason? We
Mhm.
interviewed Jason. He
Mhm.
actually offered to help this particular lady in need.
Mhm.
And in the article itself, which was, I think it was the Sydney Morning Herald, even Al Murray had a little bit to say on this.
Mhm.
So this is from September 30th, 2010. Sydney ghost hunter offers to investigate Kevin the Randy poltergeist.
Ooh,
I know, right?
right.
Kevin the Randy poltergeist.
I wonder if you say his name 3 times, will he appear in your bedroom? Try it and let us know.
Yeah,
let us
let's
know
know.
next week.
Danielle, you're on. You try.
Kevin.
All right, so this is referring, because what I was trying to do, there was a really famous one called the North Queensland Ghost Hunter, and he had a whole series of poltergeist videos online, and they've all disappeared. So I think he got debunked. So this is about the Northern Territory. For once, it's not crocodiles that are traumatising residents at the top end, it's Randy poltergeists. A Northern Territory woman is reported adamant that she was attacked while she slept by a horny ghost. Jennifer Mills Young of Durack near Darwin says a ghost she calls Kevin tried to drag her out of her bed. Already, I'm not feeling this is a poltergeist. She told her local newspaper, the Northern Territory News, for all your top news information, that during her ordeal she was stern with Kevin, and she told him he was not welcome in her bed, that he should leave and close the door behind him. Her story prompted the headline, "Horny Ghost Kevin Spooks Housewife."
That must be that great paper in Northern Territory.
That is the Northern Territory News. That's a cracker of a headline. That would have sold dozens of papers.
It would have. They'd pass Kevin around, wouldn't they? Once you're done with him, I'll take him home.
Sloppy seconds. Mrs. Mills Youngs told the newspaper, "I was asleep and I woke up when someone grabbed my wrist. I thought, Abby wants a bit of romance." I'm not going to make it through. Okay, pull it together, open up the eyes, I can't see.
It's a threesome, isn't it? I didn't realise.
No. When I suddenly remember he wasn't even at home.
That clears it up.
The moment I opened my eyes, the grip was gone and the room was empty. I yelled at Kevin that he was not welcome in my bedroom and that he couldn't come into bed with me. Actually, my friend Louise knows about a horny ghost as well. Left cum stains on her sheets. I told him to fuck off. We can do this. We can do it. I can't see. My glasses are fogged up. All right.
This is serious.
We'll never get interviewed again. All right, I told him to fuck off and to close the door behind him. A moment later, I saw how the bedroom door was closed. So he's a nice ghost.
Mm-hmm.
But the drama did not end there. Mrs. Mills Young said she quickly jumped out of bed and locked the door, as she would. I jumped up and locked it. Not that it makes much of a difference when you're dealing with a ghost, she said. The mother of two told the news that she was the worst skeptic when it comes to ghosts. She said her family felt something wasn't right with the home when they moved in 2 years ago. No explanation was given as to why she named the ghost Kevin or why the house might be haunted. But she claims her daughter also saw a dark shadow outside one night.
Right.
I made it.
Mm. So how did Murray get involved?
I don't know. He gave some sort of opinion. I didn't.
Right, okay.
That's not a poltergeist. That is not a definition of a poltergeist. It doesn't fit.
No. No.
But it was a great story, wasn't it? And it just shows how the people don't, the general population don't understand what poltergeist means. Okay. Sorry to all the new people that have come along. It's just like, lost it.
She was reading 50 Shades.
I need to go and wipe my eyes. They're going to run everywhere. Right, you go on, Renata.
Okay, so I'm going to carry on, and I'm going to talk about the Enfield ghost. And of course, this is one of the best researched poltergeist stories up to this date, the Enfield ghost. There were certainly so many people that were involved in this whole case. It goes back to 1977. When a single parent, Peggy Hodson, called police to her rented home in Enfield, claiming that she had witnessed furniture moving and that 2 of her 4 children said that knocking sounds were heard on the walls. So the children were Margaret, aged 13, Janet, aged 11, and they don't talk about the other kids. Must not be important. So a police constable said that she saw a chair wobble and slide but could not determine the cause of the movement. So here we go with other people from outside starting to see things occurring in the house. Later claims included disembodied voices, loud noises, thrown toys, overturned chairs, and children levitating. Now you all know that there is
Sounds like a school holiday fun.
A very famous photo of one of the children levitating off the bed. Over a period of 18 months, more than 30 people, including neighbours, psychic researchers and journalists, said they variously saw heavy furniture moving of its own accord, objects being thrown across a room, and the daughters seeming to levitate several feet off the ground. Many also heard and recorded knocking noises and a gruff voice. So Janet claimed that she was being used by the poltergeist while the strange bangs and knocking sounds persisted. Now, all of you have heard of this Enfield ghost. They did a couple of years ago one of the sort of the latest...
The Conjurings.
Yeah, it was The Conjurings, but there was also a special that was recorded in England called the Enfield Ghost or the Enfield Poltergeist.
Yes. There's many shows.
Yeah. So,
yeah, the Warrens. Yep, the Warrens actually had very little to do with that case.
The Warrens had nothing to do with that case.
They had a phone call. That was it.
Yep.
They never came to England to investigate. They had a phone call, and that was their only input.
Yeah, and so what you can read is a whole lot of information that has been written up of the case, and you have 2 particular investigators who were both members of the SPR, so the Society for Psychical Research in England, Maurice Grosse and Gay Lyon Playfair. So Maurice Grosse, a former inventor and leading paranormal investigator, based himself at the house and was joined in the investigation by poltergeist expert Guy Playfair, who sadly passed away.
Yeah, not long ago.
Yeah, not long ago.
Yeah. Actually, Patrick had a little clip from an interview that he did with him.
Yeah.
And
he actually talks about how the part of the investigation that the Warrens took part in.
Yes, there is going to be a live feed from the Conjuring House for a whole week. Now, that's the one that we were going to in 3 weeks' time, but let's not talk about that. And so they're just going to have video cameras rolling. You can just sit there and watch.
So while Playfair and Grosse were at the home and researching, and they did quite a lot of research, curious whistling and barking noises came from Janet's general direction, which were attributed to the mysterious spirit. And so it was decided that TV cameras should be fired up for a world first, a recorded interview with the poltergeist, where Gross tried to pin down who could be behind the hauntings which were gripping the nation. So the investigator did his research and tried to narrow down details about the ghost based on its responses to his questioning. He eventually deduced that the ghost must belong to 72-year-old Bill Wilkins, a man who had lived and died at the house decades earlier. And this is where one of the girls, Janet, started to be overcome by this voice and started to be the voice box for
And
this
I've heard the
particular
recordings of some of those, and they're quite disturbing.
And the investigators say that if you tried to continue to do that, it's quite impossible to hold that tone, that tonality that comes out of Janet. And
well,
so
I'm a singing teacher. Well, I've spent many years being a singing teacher, so to manipulate a 12-year-old's voice to do that, I don't know how she'd have to be very talented.
Yeah. So for Janet, she became a conduit for the long dead man. Her trances became violent, and her mother allegedly once had to intervene when, during one disturbing episode, Janet wrapped herself in a curtain and the fabric tangled around her throat. So Janet was detected in trickery. A video camera in the room next door caught her bending spoons and attempting to bend an iron bar. Gross had observed Janet banging a broom handle on the ceiling and hiding his tape recorder. According to Playfair, one of Janet's voices she called Bill displayed a habit of suddenly changing the topic. It was a habit Janet also had. Now, when Janet and Margaret admitted pranking to journalists, Gross and Playfair compelled the girls to retract their confession. They were mocked by other researchers for being easily duped. So this is the huge problem, that once you sort of go into this type of a story, what happens in this situation? Did these girls then sort of have that pressure on them to perform because there was the eyes of the whole of England and the world watching what was going on? This was a single mum, and the father had left the family, and so were these girls crying for attention? Did they go too far? Did they both sort of get in on trying to manipulate the story? I mean, they did say that there were times when they were pranking, and there were times when there weren't.
And kids don't understand the seriousness of it sometimes when they pull a prank.
Yeah. Now, if you do want to read further, and apparently this is, I haven't read it, but it is one of the best books to actually purchase if you want to know the exact details of the type of investigation that went on. Please buy This House is Haunted, the true story of the Enfield poltergeist.
And who's it written by?
I think it is written by Maurice Gross and Guy Lyon Playfair. Maurice.
So they were the investigators of the case. I'm pretty sure I've got it.
Yeah,
I got that in the that big haul we got from the Central Coast, I think.
They were the investigators that sat there for weeks and months going through all of this. So it is a really, really big file. And everything was recorded on tape recorders, on cassette. And I think they were going through the whole process of trying to put them onto something that was going to last, rather than on the cassettes that were going to disappear over time.
Being able to sit down and listen to the whole of the investigation
and there were hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, because they tried to tape everything that occurred.
You're not wrong, Shane. Used to work in behaviour management, and teenage manipulations can be very, very tangled. And good point, Joe. Teenagers, think about the Salem witch trials. Wow. I do have one more story.
Yes, go ahead. This is not another Randy Ghost story.
No, it's not. It is another Australian poltergeist story.
Is this the Gyra?
Yes.
Oh, I love the Gyra ghost story.
Well, let's hope I get it right. So this is about supernatural attacks on a 12-year-old girl that was so severe, police were forced to surround a country home. It is Australia's most terrifying haunting and has baffled investigators since 1921.
Mm.
A bizarre chain of events in the farming community of, how you say it? Guyra, in northern New South Wales that captivated the nation and the world continues to baffle investigators today. Now, this house is still standing, and the people that were living there had no idea that this house was the centre of this big investigation.
Can we go?
Yes, let's. Can we go now?
Yes.
Because I'm quite over the world at the moment. It's the world's a...
Yeah.
Let it go, let it go. Anyway, known as the stone-throwing, wall-bashing poltergeist of
Guyra,
targeted a family in Guyra in April 1921 for a number of months. The attacks that shook the house and the showers of rocks that broke every window in the home were never explained, but the target was believed to be a 12-year-old Minnie Bowen. Related to Tonya, I'm sure. Paul Cropper and Tony Healy are authors, and they wrote the book Australian Poltergeist. So if you want more information on that, read that one. At the time, it was a huge story, as I said. I don't know if it was slotted in at a quiet time, but for one reason or another, it went ballistic and was reported all over the world, they said. The supernatural attacks even saw the New South Wales state government send a team of detectives from Sydney to cordon off the property and put the house under constant surveillance for months.
Mm.
You imagine that? Wow. But the thumping perplexed even the officers. To those standing outside, the thumping seemed to come from within the house, but to those on the inside, it sounded like it was taking place on the outside of the house.
Mm.
Oh, I've got goosebumps. At some point or another, some young boys with catapults would have fired stones from some distance at the house, but no one was ever caught, even though there was triple the amount of police surrounding the house. The controversy of the origin of the noise at the house is common in poltergeist stories, apparently. You can never quite work out where it's coming from, or it moves. I remember being in a seance with Kai from Germany, and the knocking, that's a PK thing, was coming from the ceiling, that'd be over the wall, then it'd be right in front of you. The knocking was in front of you, but it sounded like it was on like a masonite wall. It's the most bizarre thing. But when you're in complete darkness, your senses do get confused a little bit. An adolescent child is often the very centre of the action. It's usually a girl. In modern cases where we've seen these people and interviewed them ourselves, the child is placed under a lot of stress, and somehow they trigger the phenomena. These are some mischievous and disembodied spirits that can bring about physical activity by channeling and using the angst of the child. In this case, it was Minnie. So they're trying to say that a spirit latched onto her and channeled her energy, whereas parapsychologists are saying the energy comes from the person. So slight difference on opinion. We're not saying either or. We honestly don't know. We can only give you theories. Minnie was considered to be under considerable stress at the time. This is really sad, because her beloved half-sister, May, had died and left her with an 18-month-old baby in her care.
Oh my gosh.
She was 12. Her half-sister died and left her with a baby.
Wow.
The identity of the baby's father wasn't revealed, and at the time of the occurrence in the early 1900s, this would have been considered to be an issue. So, illegitimate child.
Yeah.
Later revelations showed that Minnie's father, William Bowen, was considerably younger than Minnie's mother and was closer to May's age, the sister that died. Described as an unusual and introverted girl with a passive face, Minnie never smiled, oh dear, and had introspective eyes that never seemed to miss any movement in the room. So she was jittery. Minnie was under a lot of stress looking after this baby, going to school, and the house was crowded with when the phenomena occurred. Um, Mr. Davies, who was interested in spiritualism, suggested that the child um, should ask a question, and she immediately said, "Is that you, May?" Naming her half sister who had died some months before. So obviously it's weighing on her mind as well. Observers heard nothing, but Minnie claimed later that May had said to her, "Tell mother I am in heaven and quite happy."
Hmm.
So she's heard that voice. That's clairaudience.
Mm-hmm.
Tell her it was her prayers which got me here, and I will look after her for the rest of my life. In desperation to escape the chaos, Minnie's parents moved Minnie to the grandmother's house in Glen Innes. Despite having a few days of peace, the weirdness followed, and thumps were strong enough to dislodge ornaments in the house. So it's not the house that's haunted.
So in this case, the knocks went from the original homestead to where Minnie
Wherever
then
Minnie
went.
was.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Although the same explanation of local larrikins, of course, was suggested for throwing rocks and shaking walls, the shaking walls were more difficult to explain. Police also suggested Minnie admitted to the stones hitting the house, but many questioned whether such an admittance occurred, and if so, whether a child was able to instigate such an elaborate hoax. You know, that reminds me of. There's a show on Netflix where a girl was raped, and they questioned her so hard that she got flustered, and in the end she just denied the whole thing because it was
Mm-hmm.
just all, it was easier to deny that she was ever raped
Mm-hmm.
than to have to be
Yeah, go
treated
through the
like a criminal.
questioning. Yeah. Yep.
So
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised if that what's happened. Clifford's daughter Diana Brady told Mr. Cropper and Mr. Healy Minnie could make a piano play or chair lift on the other side of the room.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so she was able to do these PK things, psychokinetic energy movements. Also suggesting she could move furniture and lift objects without touching them. So Minnie had telekinetic or psychokinetic powers. The question is whether she always had the ability when she was a child, or if she got the power after being the target of a poltergeist.
Mm.
No, it's the poltergeist was what was within her. That's her energy. That really fits together quite well, doesn't it? With the theory that it's the person that creates the psychokinetic energy, not not a spirit latching on and making use of it.
Ooh,
Yeah.
we're opening a few doorways
All right,
here.
all right, all right. In 89, strange, dark-eyed, haunted Minnie, now an elderly, slow-moving lassie, I think that was what I meant, was run over and decapitated by a vehicle.
Oh my gosh, what an awful life.
Both houses
Wow.
still stand with current occupants, suggesting there have been no clues of a ghost, and even the residents that
Gyra.
have expanded their home.
Wow. What a sad, sad story and a sad life.
Yeah.
You've always got this issue, though. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? Does the poltergeist activity come from the person after an emotional upset? Or does the emotional upset open up an energy vortex within the person to allow a random spirit that is looking to live or infest somewhere into that particular person and then vicariously live through them in some physical form? And why do then they leave? Is there the energy of the person is just not enough for the spirit to continue to inhabit that body? Or is there too much of an attack from outside and therefore then the spirit decides to leave the body? If it is something that is controlled by the person themselves, do they just get so tired and physically distraught and mentally distraught that they no longer can do any of this PK stuff? What is the combination? I think that is all of and everything that we need to sort of really look at. The interesting comment is that there aren't a lot of people studying poltergeist activity anymore. So we don't have a lot more information coming through at this point.
I'm happy to study it. If you bring me one,
a lot of the books that are available now are regurgitating old stories. And so there isn't a lot of new stories that are coming through. And I wonder how many poltergeist stories are existing now, in this day and age, and where they are situated.
Mm.
Like, are they all over the place, or, as Harry Price put it, are they in rectories, and do they prefer the country? That would be interesting to know. If you have a poltergeist story, please tell us.
We actually,
Let
at the
us
start
know.
of the show, there was quite a few reports
Yeah, because we
of
would
different
love
ones.
to. Yeah, we would love to follow some of those up, try and get some more information, or at least record them, so that that opportunity to continue to investigate and to research those subjects is something that we can do without people telling us their stories and telling us their hauntings. It's only hearsay. It has to be some form of interview, and it has to be written down so that,
And there's very specific interviewing techniques to all of this sort of stuff too,
yeah.
so that you don't get um, front loading of ideas in people's heads. Now, Christopher said, I feel there would be so many people with emotional problems, but only some get targeted by a poltergeist. I wonder why this is.
Mm,
Is there another reason for their attachment?
exactly, exactly.
Mm.
And with all of these people now being at home and not doing their normal tasks as they would have over the last few months, and a lot of really crazy energy being out there just generally, I wonder whether the amount of hauntings or poltergeist activity has risen at this point in time, and whether other countries are actually finding that happening as
Has it
well.
risen, or is it because people are at home to witness it?
Mm, exactly.
Good question.
If there is a poltergeist in the house, but you're not there, is it still there? Does it
Does
exist?
it exist?
If we're
Suppose
not
you come
seeing
home and
it.
find your house in a mess, then yes, it does.
And Jody says, Tulpa, could it be a thought form from the
Sorry,
individual? Yes. Yeah.
Mick.
Yep. So we create egregores. We've talked about this when
This
we
is true
were
too.
doing the letter E. So those thought forms can become very, very substantial, and get a life of their own. And that was explored with the Philip experiment and proven to occur. So again, if it happens once, does it mean that it can happen more often, or was it just a one-off? Unfortunately, this just opens more questions than it answers, which is the wonderful thing about paranormal investigating and ghost hunting, that there is a continuation of trying to find out what the truth actually is.
Now we have some sort of bits and pieces of news for you tonight,
Yep.
but that does finish us with our
Yes.
poltergeist at the moment. So
Yep.
do you want to hit the magic button to end that?
Yes, so thank you everyone for listening. Those watching, please don't go away while I press the magic button.
So we finally got off our backsides and organised our introduction to paranormal investigating. It is going to be run over 3 weeks, commencing the 12th of May, Tuesday night, 7:30 to 8:30. And there is a whole. If you go to the Australian School of Ghost Hunting page, you will see the whole list there of what it all entails. It is $30 for the whole 3 weeks.
Cheap as chips.
And you'll be put into a private little Facebook group where we will go live. If you can't watch it on the night that we are live, you can watch it at any time you like. So anyone from overseas who wants to join us, you don't have to be Australian to be in the Australian School of Ghost Hunting. Please come and join us. We would love it. It's going to be a hoot. We've only just announced it this afternoon. I think we've had about 12 people sign up already. So that's that. We also want to thank...
Yes, we certainly want to thank all of our Patreon members, those that have been supporting us, those that work behind the scenes, those that listen to us whinge, those that get the extra stories, the extra behind the scenes videos, and we talk to you more often than anybody else. We thank you so very, very much for your heartwarming support and your words. And if you want to join our little Patreon group, we will put up
and
the
thank you,
link
Leanne,
for
for joining us in the $5 Patreon group. We have $2, $5, and $10 per month Patreon. Be aware that it is a United States dollar. We can't change that. It's just the way it is. But all the little perks and things that are associated with that are listed on the Patreon page under Frightfully Good paranormal spiritual community. Also would like to thank Maitland Jail, who allowed us to go and investigate on Friday night, even though it was stressful.
I have not been that stressed for so long. Oh my gosh. We were working with technology and all of this sort of set up. And the thing is that you're in an old building, there are no electrical points anywhere, and the walls are this thick.
Yeah, so Wi-Fi's not great.
Yeah, Wi-Fi just doesn't work. And how do you do something with two people when it's supposed to really have about three or four? You know, dealing with cameras and all of that sort of stuff, and you're trying to do that and talk.
We are
before.
older, capable women, and we can do anything.
We certainly can.
And I would advise you all to go to sorry, it went down the wrong way. Newcastle Ghost Tours page and have a look at Renata's little rant about being an older woman in the paranormal, being a woman, being older, and being in the paranormal. It's we've had some interesting comments from people lately calling us old bags and get us off the screen and they're ugly. And we just decided we'd had enough.
That's right.
Just because we're old, it doesn't mean we don't have something to give. And let's face it, the older generation are the ones with the knowledge.
Now, also, before we say goodbye,
I've still got more.
Yeah, we have also this Thursday on Spirit Talk Australia,
which is another page.
Because we've got 1,000 of them.
Why not?
The beautiful Sherilyn Darcy, who will be joining us from 7 till 8 o'clock, and she's going to be talking about her artwork, her oracle cards, her botanical alchemy that she does.
Botanical alchemy.
Oh, she is absolutely amazing, and she is such a joyous soul. So if you're kind of into all of that, join us at 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock next Thursday on Spirit Talk Australia. So it's before the free tarot. Yeah.
So Spirit Talk Australia is we are speaking to some of the best people in the world that are involved in spiritual work and all sorts of different fields. And this is
picking their brains.
Yeah, because of the gorgeous Witch of Oz, Lady Tamara, who is reaching out to the brains trust of the world with her contacts to get their story and get you guys aware of them and their knowledge before it's too late for them to pass on their knowledge. So next week is Q. And we might have a special guest. I haven't told Renata about this, but she'll probably breathe a sigh of relief that we might have a special guest on this. We're going to be looking at quantum physics and how quantum fits into the paranormal field. And Quarantine Station Manly, where I was one of the main paranormal investigators for 6 years. And I'm hoping I might be able to dig out some of the evidence that I've collected over that 6 years and be able to share it with you. How's that?
That's pretty cool. I'll be here.
I'm going to swallow my pride and do it. I'll be nice.
So thank you everyone for joining us this evening. We hope that you have a wonderful week ahead. Please take care wherever you are in the world. Just be aware that this virus is a horrible thing and it is not made up. It is real and it is hurting people very, very deeply. So please just be aware to be sensible. Yep, and do the right thing.
All right.
Yep.
That's it for tonight.
Yep. And we shall see you
We love
Thursday.
You all, and we'll see you on the dark side, as we like to say.
Bye.
Bye.